Hi and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to go over the Harbor Freight Titanium MIG170. This is going to be my personal thoughts on the machine. I've had it for a little over a year. I've only had one problem with it, and that was the factory line set that the unit comes with. That's the hose that goes from the back of the welder to the regulator. You can see mine has been replaced. It lasted about 5 months and then blew apart out on the job site, costing me a day of labor. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I buy tools to make money. So when something goes down in the field and you can't repair it, time is money. If you purchase the machine, don't even use the factory line set. Cut the hose off, use the factory fittings, and go down. Any hardware store will sell the nylon reinforced tubing. Just go ahead and replace it. The factory one's just made of cheap rubber that has a black nylon sheathing over it to make it look pretty. But it is cheap. That is really the only issue that I've had as far as failures on the MIG. The only other problem I've had with the unit is the gun itself. Now please excuse, I use my tools. The problem I've had with the gun is the button. Sometimes when you let go of the button, it will continue to feed wire out of the gun. I have gotten into the habit of flicking the button, and that seems to fix the issue, and 99.9% of the time the wire stops when you flick it. Now let's kind of go over the machine, what I like about it. As soon as I get this wrapped around here. The reason I picked up the machine was I had a Miller 185. It was a transformer based machine, very large, larger than this whole footprint with the cart, the welder, and the tank. The tank would sit back here. I don't know what it weighed, but I know when I was younger, it took every bit of strength to pick that thing up and get it in the truck. I could no longer pick it up. This machine, very light. You just throw it in the back of the truck, throw the cart in there, throw your tank in it, go to the job site. Next, the Miller was 220, 240 only. This machine will operate on 110, 120, 220, 240. There's a switch right on the back to switch it from, you know, an L1 situation to L1, L2. Love that. It makes it great out in the field. You don't have to call the electrician and have him wire a 30-amp dryer plug before you get there. You're not depending on another trade to do his job so you can do yours. There's going to be 110 on that site. If there's 110, this machine's going to work. That's why I picked it up. It's great. Now let's turn it on, check out the front controls. Now it's ready for operation. That's a first little boot up. Now I deliberately did this. This is a little built-in safety. If you fire the machine up and it's not on the right voltage input, it will come up error volume. It means the volume of voltage coming in is incorrect. So we're going to turn the machine off. Then we're going to flip the switch to get to the right voltage. And turn the machine back on. now you see the error message has disappeared. It is set to the voltage that the machine sees coming in. This first knob, this is your wire speed. Second knob is your voltage. Third knob, this is phase. This is how the sine wave hits on 0. I've been told mainly this is used when you put the spool gun on the machine. You can change the phase of the output to make aluminum welding more efficient. I personally don't own the spool gun, so I cannot comment on how effective this is. I have played around with it, just doing mild steel. To be honest with you, I really haven't seen a difference one way or the other. So it definitely has something to do with the spool gun. Maybe I come back in a couple months after I pick up the spool gun and do a review. You know, how much difference does this actually make? Let's cut this off just in case it's screwing up the audio. All your plugs on the front of the machine are twist and lock, which is pretty standard. And I have heard people complain about the factory grounding clamp. I am going to be one that goes against the grain and tells you there's nothing wrong with this clamp. I have turned the machine down and piddled around on sheet metal. Even with thin sheet metal, there's enough pressure here, it will ground. If you're having grounding issues, clean the metal. It's got to be an issue where you haven't cleaned the metal and you're putting the ground clamp on dirty steel. If it's clean metal, you're not going to have a problem. This thing has quite a bit of pressure on it. It's quite dirty, but you can see there's a copper contact between with the nut. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. Let's pop this back in. Like I said, you push in and twist. This one is the exact same scenario. It's push in and twist. This one is your DIN connection. And I can tell you, when I first assembled the machine, this one's a little fiddly to get in. You get all those little pins to line up. Be careful. Do not bend any of those pins. Other than that, it's straightforward. If you're doing flux core, you're going to have to flip these around, just like you do any other machine. Let's take a look inside. On the inside, on the cover of the door, we have a nice little chart. Chart's pretty accurate. I've used it to get basic line settings. I don't really refer to it too much anymore because I work with pretty much the exact same material on every job, and I've gotten to the point now where I know the machine, I know the material I'm working with, so I don't really need this. But if I do run into something that fits in here, that's exactly where I would start. It gives you a nice starting point. You can also see I use the large spools. I've had no problems with the motor in this machine pulling full spools. The tensioner here works well. It's easy. You can do it with one finger. Comes up, locks. Got a small spring here, which my Miller did not have. I actually like that. It makes it much easier to fish the wire in, to get it in here, to hold it with your finger, to lock this over. This is your tensioner. No issues with that whatsoever. Up here is the only switch on the inside. If you do get the spool gun, you have to flip the switch to the up position for the spool gun. Of course, mine's in the lower position because I'm doing MIG flux core. penetration. I've used it on both 240 and 120. It's a good machine. On 120, 110, I can get 1/4 inch and not even really work for it. Just turn up your wire speed, get your voltage right, and work your puddle. Do your circle. Push back into your puddle. You can build with it. It has the power to do it. Very forgiving machine. On 220, does it have more butt? Of course it does. It's more voltage. Using the products that I use, I feel more comfortable in the 110. When I switch it over to the 220, yes, it has more power, but it also changes your settings. And I do a lot of work in the field. I'm used to working on 110. So what I find is by the time I figure out the setting, I would have probably been better off just to plug the thing into 110. That way my brain's already set to it. I kind of know where to go when I look at my weld, or how it's puddling, or if it's, breaking the wire, arcing. But that's really up to the individual running it. 99% of the time I'm on 110 working, so I'm very familiar with it, especially now since I've had the machine for a year. My final thoughts on it: great machine. It replaced a Miller 185. If I had my Miller still here, I would definitely pick this machine up every time over the Miller. Not saying the Miller's a bad machine. The Miller is just big and heavy. There is a place for the Miller. It's a transformer-based machine. It would probably outlast an inverter welder. Well, I know it would, because there's no moving parts. The drawback to those type machines are weight and portability. I would, pick this machine up, throw it in the truck, go to the job site. That's what it's about. It's not going to kill you getting it into the truck. Performance, I give it 100%. The only drawback, as I stated earlier, is this factory line set. It's just no good. The regulator that comes in the box, it works. You don't need a better regulator. This one works just fine. I've had no issues. It works. And that's what it's about. Cost versus how many dollars it can make you. I feel that this is a good investment. It's made its money. Maybe not on the first job, unlike the prime weld over here. It paid for itself on the first job. This one probably took, because I already had the Miller, it probably took a couple weeks for me to really understand the portability and the ease of use versus the Miller. So, can't stress it enough. If you need a small machine that works well, that's dependable, I think this is a good machine for that category. Anyway, I hope you found this review helpful and useful. Have a great day, and may God bless.